Hi, I'm Durward Stewart from Kee Farms, and this is Sea Moss 101. Sea moss, in its simplest sense, is a type of seaweed. In Jamaica, we have two types. We have Gracilaria and we have Euchema. Sea moss is known as a superfood because it packs iodine, calcium, potassium. These are minerals average person won't get enough in their daily consumption or how they go about eating. With Gracilaria, one of its most valuable byproducts is agar. Agar is used in the manufacturing and food industry. If you did biology in high school or even at college, you would have been exposed to a petri dish and a bacteria culture. That petri dish is covered by agar, and that's coming from sea moss. Euchema now is carrageenan. Both of them is used as thickening agents, so you find carrageenan in your cosmetic products like toothpaste, food processes like making milk for vegans, ice cream, vegan ice cream, you name it. Sea moss grows naturally on rocks and corals in the ocean. Structurally, sea moss provides a microhabitat for smaller fishes, crustaceans, and invertebrates. These are food for larger marine animals, so for larger fishes, and then those fishes are food for larger marine animals. That creates a whole ecosystem and introduce a wide biodiversity in that space, which is good for climate resilience. Sea moss, or the presence of sea moss, plays two major roles when we look into the blue economy or just climate resilience when it comes to ocean and water bodies. One major thing is carbon sequestration. So that's basically absorbing excess carbon in the environment and basically locking that in permanently. When that happens, sea moss can be used as a form of fertilizer, even when it's eaten. So it's cycled through the whole system rather than being free in the atmosphere and adding to the greenhouse gases, which then adds to global warming. Excess carbon dioxide basically lowers the pH of the water through a process, and that's called acidification. It provides a very hostile environment for the other organism, especially the shellfish or any other organism that uses calcium deposit to be a part of its body. If you pour lime and vinegar on limestone or on a shell, it will kind of dissolve it. So that's the same effect that the acidification will have on the marine organism, especially the shellfish. If the sea moss is not present, helping with absorbing some of that excess carbon dioxide from the water. There are two ways that sea moss is basically retrieved from the environment. You have wild harvesting and you have the farming or the intentional farming of sea moss. Wild harvesting is going out there, you dive with the equipment or a net and you just collect sea moss from the environment. It's a lot less control. It promotes over harvesting. So you talk to some of the fisher folks and they will tell you that, hey, when I was a boy, growing up in this area, this place used to full of Irish moss, and now there's not even a thallus, a speck. And that's through people going in and wild harvesting. Farming of the sea moss now is a lot more control, it's a lot more sustainable. You'll find that the sea moss in this area is more than likely healthier for consumption. Why? Because water quality tests will be done in this area. We test the temperature, we test the pH, we test for excess nutrients and heavy metals. It's more sustainable that the harvesting in a farming culture is controlled. So if we harvest from one part in particular, we leave some of the biomass there to regenerate while we harvest from somewhere else. And then after that is harvested, we leave that to regenerate and we move on to somewhere else. So there's always biomass left after harvesting for the regeneration process to take place. So you don't have any complete depletion of sea moss in that farm culture. Best practices where sea moss farming is concerned. So from the growing of sea moss, you have to make sure that you maintain adequate spacing so that there's not any overcrowding, so that the life of the sea moss or the growing process of the sea moss, there's no battle for nutrients or any competition really. Overcrowding other biodiversity or other ecosystem that might be coexisting with the sea moss. With harvesting, you have to make sure that it's done in a hygienic manner with materials or equipment that is environmentally friendly, that you're not creating any waste or excess waste. Also with harvesting, you have to make sure that you're not disrupting any other ecosystem that might be existing in the area. So make sure that there is little to no seabed disturbance with harvesting. So even with drying and packaging is to use environmentally friendly material. So if you can reduce your use of plastic as much as possible in the drying process, and even if you use plastic, make sure that it's reusable plastic. To the customer, make sure that you're providing them with a clean and properly dried sea moss, because this will ensure that the shelf life is as long as possible and the customer can get the best value for their money. How do you know that the sea moss is not fit for consumption or it wasn't dried properly? Sea moss, when dried, is either gold, yellow, or purple. If you're seeing some dark, brownish, greenish spots over the sea moss, it's more than likely it's not good and it's not good for consumption. Depending on the species, some sea moss have a more marine smell after post-harvesting, but it should not be this pungent smell of like raw or any off-putting smell. In order to really smell that marine scent from sea moss, you have to put it up to your face. So if you get a batch of sea moss, you don't have to put it to your face to smell that marine. It's probably bad, and you should throw that out. You can get linkages to people who farm sea moss properly or responsibly through people who have relationships, who have permits to do so. So people who has relationship with fisheries and NEPA, and even through Kee Farms, you can get your sea moss that is responsibly farmed by the fisher folks that were trained by us and has received their permits, and everything is done in a sustainable way, hygienic way, and is good for consumption. Sea moss farming in Jamaica is regulated by two governmental organizations. You're required to have a beach license from NEPA, and then from NEPA, you have National Fisheries Authority. First, you have to have a fisherman license and permit, and then you get a sea moss license and permit in order to do sea moss farming in Jamaica. I believe that there is some extra need or a greater push for public education. A man would just get up and just say, all right, I go farm some sea moss, and that's it. Even in agriculture, you have a lot of farmers that don't have their RADA license. It's the same culture where licensing and permits aren't seen as a very important part. There's no need for a season per se, but if the wild harvesting concept and practice seems to still be happening, what I think would be a bit more effective is having zones where sea moss can be farmed and harvested. There's a project being done by the National Fisheries Authority where they're establishing special zones where it's demarcated for sea moss farming. And I believe this is especially important in kind of trying to curtail the over-harvesting. And with this, you won't have the need to like enforce laws where it has to be seasonal, like, you know, your conch season and stuff like that. If it's done in a sustainable way, sea moss can be farmed and harvested year-round to make sure that we have a constant supply, that we can now tap into the international market where there's a high demand for sea moss and its byproducts.